If you remember my review of InWin F5 case, which was a full tower and quite a different, let's say, orientation of some parts inside that case compared to this one, you'll notice that I was quite satisfied with that one. At the same time, they released another case, which wasn't a full tower. We're talking about InWin D5, which is a MIDI tower case that actually has quite interesting stuff and features, and you'll definitely love it because, well, I'm saying it right on front, because it covers loads of segments and in some sort of way kind of gives you more options, let's put it this way. So first of all, what I want to say, this case supports Backconnect from Asus and MSI, and this is really good because even though if you go with it, or basically if you don't go with that, you can do an outstandingly clean build. And right here, there's only two cables visible, 24 pin and 12VH PWR. All other cables concerning PWM, addressable RGB, EPS is somewhat viewable, but then again, it's again a nicely braided cable. It still looks quite outstanding, and I'm one of those guys that actually still likes to see cable running out if it's a custom sleeved cable, of course. But regardless of that, you can go both ways and you don't have to worry about it. So if you have regular components that aren't back connect, you can nicely rearrange them. Or if you go with a completely new setup and you buy new components, you can definitely go with Backconnect here. Now, since we're mentioning that, you can go up to eATX, ATX, Micro ATX, and Mini ATX, quite logical. But there's one more thing. There's a cable shroud right here next to the motherboard, and it's quite convenient because it covers that empty space a bit differently and kind of gives that a, let's say, a special coverage of totally empty part, right? Now, this case supports loads of fans, supports huge fans, and supports quite nice amount of radiators as well. So let's start with the fans. At the rear, we have one 120. This is Neptune AN12. This is the only fan that arrives with the case. Why? Well, because on front you can place three 140 Neptune AN14, which is outstanding, and on top as well. But if you go with radiators, 360 on front and 360 on top, which is still quite solid. Now, this is the fans, this is the radiator configuration, but what about GPUs? Now, I'm going to mention the length and all the other stuff when I covered the power supply and the CPU tower cooler, but the GPU can be mounted vertically or horizontally. And this brings us to the point where this power supply shroud is completely, well, going back to basics. It doesn't have any openings, so you can't mount two fans here to create additional intake for the GPU from the bottom if it's in horizontal position. So they actually placed a couple of holes where you can adjust the, let's say, the distance of the holder for the riser, because the riser isn't included, so you can maneuver here and you can place your GPU vertically. You don't have to worry about the 7 PCI expansion slots here at the back because that's rotatable. So depending, are you going to go vertical, you can just rotate it and add the riser, mount it here, place the GPU and stuff like that, or you can leave it as it is and that's it. So vertical position has 6 PCI expansion slots while the horizontal position has 7. Now, to back the GPU up a bit, we have quite interesting anti-sag bracket. Yeah, let's put it a bracket. At the bottom, it's magnetic, so it kind of does make sense that the whole power supply shroud is full metal. Let's put it this way. There are no holes or anything similar to that. So that kind of keeps it more stable. It can hold the GPU anti-sag, well, basically keep it straight in both scenarios. So if you go with horizontal, as I did, you can place it as such, and you have a top part here that has a rubber part that kind of keeps the GPU, well, not directly touching plastic or anything else, but here we go. And if you go vertically, there's a small, I would say, cutout, standout that kind of goes at the back and holds the GPU in vertical position straight as well. This is outstanding. They thought of everything right here. Now, since I went back and I mentioned the back connect at the back, it kind of doesn't make sense. It doesn't actually make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense when we're talking about cables because you're connecting them at the back, and who actually cares about the cables at the back, right? Well, let's take into consideration these components that I have where you actually see the cable sticking out. And then if you go with the extenders, if you have a chance, you can go with a full custom slip cables from the power supply to the components, regardless of that, you have loads of space at the back. Well, you basically need them for the back connect because you do need to store them somewhere. Now, there is loads of space. There are some additional hinges where you can use your Velcro ties, zip ties, or whatever, and try to organize everything. The cool position for the fans when we're talking about that is that you have enough holes here to reroute the cables and do everything properly, so no cables are seen. As I mentioned, only 2 cables are seen in this build, not mentioning DPS, which you see like half a centimeter. The sad thing about the front fans, and which would be quite outstanding, and I'm not quite sure about the 120s, but 140s can't be placed between the chassis and the front panel. There's literally just like a centimeter and a half of from the top and the bottom part that is actually preventing you from placing the fans on front, giving you, let's say, more space for the GPU, even though, as I stated, I have here GeForce RTX 4080 Gaming X Trio that is actually fairly long, so you don't need more space than this. Now, in the power supply shroud compartment, we also have two hard drive cage, which can accommodate 2 hard drives or 2 SSDs, 2.5 inch, and at the back, here at the back of the motherboard, you have one hard drive caddy that can also accommodate one 2.5 inch SSDs instead of that hard drive. So all in all, what I would say is that it's a quite thought out case, not build case. The cool thing is, and some of you, and I noticed from loads of comments from other case reviews, will maybe disagree, but the front panel doesn't have a dust filter. The top one does, it's magnetic, and the bottom one is there as well. It covers the whole bottom part, which is cool. So why not the front dust filter? Well, as I stated in a couple of builds, there is some sort of a term for a fine mesh, which means when you take a look at the dust filter and the fine mesh front panel or top panel, regardless of the case and the brand, it's actually almost the same, or maybe it is the same. The thing is, they did a perforated steel, created those holes as small as possible just to mimic the dust filter, thus giving us, let's say, less stuff inside the case to worry about when building. But yet again, small holes just enough to block the dust, yet big enough to create the airflow, which is outstanding. Big appreciation towards that, and I actually do prefer that. I can't lie. Now, talking about maximum compatibility of components, GPU can go up to 365 millimeters, CPU heatsink goes up to 165, and the power supply goes up to 180. Talking about the I/O ports, we have one USB 3.2 generation 2x2 Type-C, two USB 3.2 generation 1, an HD audio combo jack, which is for microphone and headsets. Now, there's one more cool feature that I would like to mention before we go into benchmarks and give you some thermals and ideas about how it performs. You have a cool feature, as already stated, but it's right here on front, and it kind of gives you an option to place your headset there, which is kind of convenient, to be honest. You don't have to drill holes inside your drawers or table or place them on the wall. It depends, of course, how you decide to mount your headset, where you're going to place them or whatever. But regardless of that, you just pull it out, place your headset, that's it. Really cool. It has nice thickness, so it won't dent in the headband, and that's really good. Now, benchmarks. IDA 64 Extreme Edition, what we got is CPU going up to 88 degrees Celsius. We're talking about AMD Ryzen 9 7900 X3D cooled by InWin MR36. Then the clock speeds were 4775 megahertz, and the GPU, which you already know which one is 67 degrees in this configuration, which is really good. Cinebench R23 thermals are fixed at 84 degrees, and I can't say it's average because it didn't move whatsoever. And then we have kind of difference when we're talking about the clock speeds from 4975, 5000, 5025, and it's not all over the place, but it's quite solid. And I do have to say, first 8 benchmarks, first 8 runs were at 26,250, 60, let's put it this way. And then the last two, somehow it got a boost and it went up to 26,759 and 504, which is definitely amazing when we take into consideration that we're still cooling with MR36, the same processor. And the only thing that can benefit such a case are those three 140 millimeter fans on front. All in all, what I can say, I'm really digging this case. The MIDI tower that actually deserves huge appreciation in terms of thought through design, without a doubt, because it gives you back connect options and you can still go with regular connections, yet create a nice clean build with minimal cables and still enjoying the visual aspects of the case. One more thing that I do have to add: the front tempered glass and the back side panel are attached by pegs, which are quite sturdy, I do have to say, in terms of connections, so you don't have to worry about anything falling off. The only thing that makes them move is actually you pushing and removing them from the chassis, and it's the same mechanism as on F5, so you'll be definitely satisfied. You don't have to worry about that. What I can say finally, big thumbs up for InWin producing the F5, which I was satisfied, and D5, which I'm definitely satisfied. I can't say which one I actually love most, but the D5 definitely deserves a PC Crazy approved badge, and that's all that is to it when we're talking about that. In the description, you'll find a link for the InWin D5, since I do recommend it highly, and it's a quite outstanding MIDI tower case. Then the InWin MR36, and finally the power supply that's powering up the whole system, which is a P105 to 1050 watts platinum power supply. And at the end, if you're new to the channel and if this kind of gave you some more ideas about the chassis and how to do it, what to do with it, or eventually help you choose your future case, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell. See you very soon, guys. Bye bye.